Please welcome Corey Ray and Sarah Kate Ellis.
Stretch, ladies and some gentlemen. I'm Sarah Kate Ellis. I'm the president and CEO of GLAAD. And GLAAD, thank you. For those who don't know, GLAAD is an LGBTQ media advocacy organization. We accelerate acceptance, so we do culture change. And this is Corey Ray, who I'm thrilled to be interviewing today. Activist, model, writer. And Corey uses her platform to tell her story, and she has a really interesting story. She's been an activist since she was a teenager. And do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got into activism as a teenager?
Sure. I was born transgender. I always knew something was different than the rest of my classmates about myself. And when I was 12, I was reading a People magazine in a career day, and I saw the word transgender and the sentence trapped in the wrong body, and it hit me in class in the 7th grade while I was preparing for my bar mitzvah. And so no, I didn't get the pink fluffy dress I wanted, but I immediately identified with it. And at the time, the Google empire wasn't where it was, and Microsoft Word would underline transgender in red. It wasn't even a word in the dictionary, I guess. Mm-hmm. And so there wasn't a lot of information for my mom and I to move forward. So it took about 3 years. And when I was 15, we found a therapist who would see me, and she started to transition me while I was a junior in high school. And over the course of 7 months, I started to really transition very slowly. I grew out my hair, and I really wanted to be, and I didn't need to be, but respectful to my classmates and everyone around me. And I had a very slow transition. I didn't go to school one day with a wig and a mini skirt on. I took my time with it, and I started wearing my mom's clothes. And as a top cosmetologist and stylist, I was very lucky and blessed to have her by my side to help me with what looks good on my body and to help me grow out my hair. And I didn't really say anything to my classmates. I think everyone just sort of was like, this makes sense. Corey is so feminine and has always been such a different energy that this makes sense for Corey. And I had always wanted to be the pretty popular girl. I looked up to Cher from Clueless and Elle Woods and Legally Blonde and unfortunately Regina George and Mean Girls, and I sort of like emulated that, which wasn't great, but I wanted to be prom queen, and so I ran and I won. And at the time I had no idea that it was historical. I just wanted to be seen. And that night for me was, that night gave me the confidence to know that if I really wanted something and if I thought it and I manifested it and I wrote it and I talked about it and I really put all myself into it, it could happen with hard work. And that was like a move me moment that night. The room went like a blur and I couldn't see anyone. And it was just, I felt seen for the first time by my classmates as a woman. And then I went stealth for 5 years after graduating high school, and I lived in secret, and I lived a double life.
Can you explain what stealth means?
Yeah, and I think it's quite damaging now to be stealth, but it basically meant I lived in secret. I didn't disclose to anyone that I had transitioned or been transgender. I actually didn't have my sexual reassignment surgery until the end of my freshman year of college. So I went through my entire freshman year with a genitalia I still didn't identify with. And I had my surgery the day after my 19th birthday and went through the rest of college, and a year after college, still not disclosing it to anyone. I had a boyfriend and hooked up with a lot of guys, and I was a party girl, and I had a lot of friends and just lived a cisgender lifestyle. And after the Orlando shooting in 2016, that was the real first attack in my generation that I saw that hit close to home, besides, I think, 9/11, but for the queer and LGBTQ community. And I had enough. I didn't like where I saw the movement going for trans women. I didn't like how we were being perceived and treated. And I said, I need to use my voice and start helping people see us in a different light. And I wrote a blog post called Allow Me to Reintroduce Myself, and I put it on Facebook. And the next day, Yahoo had picked it up and interviewed me for an article. And overnight, I became an activist and a writer for a community I hadn't really identified with yet. And the past 2.5, almost 3 years, I've been working towards assimilating myself in the community and elevating my story and the story of other LGBTQ+ people.
So let's talk about that for a minute. Last month at the Sundance Film Festival, I can't believe that was last month, the GLAAD List, which some of you heard about yesterday, which is an annual survey of Hollywood executives' favorite unproduced screenplays, joined forces with GLAAD, and we created the GLAAD List. So we curated the list of the most promising unmade LGBTQ inclusive scripts in Hollywood. And what we know at GLAAD is that we do an annual study on images and representation, and in our annual studio report, only 14 of the 109 from the major film houses, films that are made include LGBTQ content. So there's a lot we can do. And this GLAAD List is part of doing that. And one of the screenplays is called Queen, and it happens to be yours.
Yeah.
So, and is the story of her prom, of winning prom queen.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how you did that prom queen thing. It's hard enough to go to the prom as a teenager, as a high schooler, but then to go and put yourself out there in that way. Tell us what it means to you to have this film now on this list and the prospect of it being made and the story being, you know, out there in a major way.
My friend from high school, his name's Harry Tare. He came to me 3 years ago before I came out through that blog post and said, I have an idea. Our town is so bizarre and so unconventional, but yet totally cookie cutter from the outside. I really want to do a show with a strong trans lead, and I want to talk about your story and you know, do a John Hughes mixed with a Berlanti type thing where we have a transgender high schooler who wins prom queen, which is me. And over time, it's evolved into a screenplay. And Harry is a wonderful writer, and I viciously edited it and helped with the storyline. And we just really wanted to make a transgender inclusive film, show transgender women in a strong light, that we can do anything that anyone else can. And we are, I mean, so honored to be on the Blacklist and the GLAAD List and the inaugural GLAAD List. It's amazing, and I think it's really, really important that we do start to turn our focus towards LGBTQ+ people, and that's non-binary, gender non-conforming, transgender, however you identify. We really need that representation in films. And for Queen to be one of the 10 movies listed it's an honor. It's incredibly humbling, and thank you.
Yeah, well, we're thrilled. And I think this might be a really good opportunity. You mentioned non-binary, and you and I live in this world. A lot of people here do not live in this world, and I'd love to even, you know, one of the greatest things that we can do, and I do as an executive, is say, like, this is a safe place. You can ask the questions that you need to. It can be very confusing. The LGBTQ movement has grown and expanded. And I'd love for you to tell us, what does trans or transgender mean to you? And how can all of us help the trans community as siblings of yours?
Being transgender to me means it's an individual who is going to go through a physical transition. We all go through transition. Life is in transition. It's all a journey. But for trans people, it's physical, like a butterfly, which is very fitting that we're at the Monarch Hotel.
Right.
And it's sweet. My mom and I, our thing is butterflies. Butterflies is sort of my brand. And I think that it doesn't mean you need to have sexual reassignment surgery. It just means that you want to transition your physical appearance in some form that defies gender binaries. And that's what it means to me. It means just becoming your most authentic, beautiful, happy, confident, thoughtful self.
That's great. And I think that we've all been trained and boxed into these binaries, right? And we don't even think about it sometimes, but if you sit back and you think about it for a second, now we have gender reveal cakes. How much is placed on gender, right? Before you're even born.
Yeah.
It's kind of alarming. And when you do, I remember a few years back, Target took down boys' toys and girls' toys. I happened to go on Fox to talk about that one. And they were calling it political correctness. And I said, well, when I grew up, Legos were primary colors. There was one kind of Lego to have.
Yeah.
And now it's like, if you're a boy, you get this Lego. If you're a girl, you get this Lego. And we start at such an early age, all of this that we're talking about for the past day and a half. And it'd be really good if that we could unwire from very young, especially as parents and adults. So I think it's something to think about. And you have a lot of executives in this room. What's
Pressure.
Pardon?
No pressure.
No pressure. What is the one thing that they can, I thought really effectively last night was the woman who was saying, get the box off your resume. I was texting our HR
I forgot
person.
to answer that, yep.
Saying, do we have a box? I didn't even know. And we don't, fortunately. And I'm gonna be really aware of that moving forward. What's something that everybody here can text their head of HR or, get on now?
I think first and foremost, if you know someone who is struggling with gender identity in any shape or form, just to make sure that you communicate with them that you're there for them. Support and love unconditionally is the most important thing for anyone, but especially going through something like this. It is extremely difficult and sometimes excruciatingly painful, and both physically and emotionally. And I think that in business terms, it's about making sure that you are actively trying to do better and be more inclusive of trans individuals and gender nonconforming individuals, and do your research and watch documentaries like The Life and Death of Marsha P. Johnson on Netflix, to read books about transgender struggles, to really educate yourself on the topic, and to also start implementing things in your companies that can make transgender people feel more a part of the community. I mean, our theme is all of us, and transgender people are all of us. We are included in everything. And I think that transgender people have a lot to teach the world about becoming your most authentic self. And I think that's it's a lot to do, and most people don't find themselves in this lifetime. And we need to give credit to the men and women who are strong and courageous enough to say, I don't care about what you think about me. I need to do what's best for myself. And that is by living authentically and in the gender that I identify most with. And I really think that texting or calling and just expressing your love and support for these people does way more than you could imagine. And of course, personally, I try to answer every email and message and DM and comment possible. Even if it's like a butterfly emoji, I am always there for anyone. I think that a person in my position who has social media and does use it, it's important that we interact with the people that are coming to us, and I'm always there if you're listening. I'm always there for you. My mom's always there for you, and she is. And please reach out if you need help or if you just want to say hi. I'm here if no one else is.
And that's beautiful. And our time is up, but I will add to that you can go back to your HR departments and you can look and make sure that your medical coverage also includes trans people. You can make sure that your bathrooms are all-inclusive, or that you have an all-inclusive bathroom on your, and try not to make it like Hidden Figures where you have to go to another building to use the restroom. And education. We do that at the top down and the bottom up on LGBTQ issues all the time. Thank you for your
Thank you,
time.
guys.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
listening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.